Good evening. I'm going to call the October County Services Committee meeting to order. Without objection tonight, I'll handle the prayer and pledge, and Ms. Mason says she'll help me get back on track with the rotation this meeting. If you will you stand and bow with me? Dear Heavenly Father, I come to you tonight with praise. We rejoice in the fact that we get to live in this nation, we get to live in this state, and we get to live in this county. Please be with us tonight as we handle the people's business. Please watch over us, have your will be done. Make sure we're serving in the best capacity that we can. These things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to the adoption of the agenda. Does anybody have any changes to the agenda? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion to adopt the agenda by Justice Lyons, a second by Justice Steen. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? The agenda is adopted. With that, we'll move into our monthly reports. First up for the Juvenile Detention, Director Tinsley. Good evening, sir.
This report is for the month of August. We will have the report for September available at the end of this month at the next committee meeting. In the month of August, we had 18 intakes with the average length of stay being 6.44 days. The average daily population for August was 6.39. The highest number of intakes were Battery 3rd misdemeanor at 4. Of the 18 intakes from Washington and Madison County, 8 were from Division 3 and 10 were from Division 8. There were 4 total transports. 3 were done by the Washington County Sheriff's Office, and 1 was performed by an outside agency. Are there any questions that I may address at this time?
Questions for Director Tinsley? Justice Coger?
Thank you, Judge. I just want to say how much I appreciate your detailed reports every month. They're really, really good. I just have a couple of things. I noticed that the number of days detention was up a little bit from 93 to 116 from last year. That's on 4.3. Is that pretty common for this time of year, you think, or?
Yes, ma'am. During the summertime, we see a decrease in our intakes. Now, when school starts back, we see a lot of arrests made through the SROs and places of that nature. A lot of offenses happen at school. So some of these juveniles will, in fact, come to JDC. A lot of times they're cited out, just depending on what the charge is.
Okay, well, and you kind of answered my next question. Had to do with, I noticed that the numbers in March, April, May, June were all in the 40s. And then that's on 4.5. And then July and August, they had gone down. So that was my question. I just wondered if you thought that those were up. Did most of those offenses occur during school hours?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And particularly, this is just a common thing that we see. And I tell my staff business it's about to pick up dramatically from here to the end of this, school year throughout the Christmas break, and just to be prepared for that as well.
Okay, and on the transports, there were 3 out-of-town transports. Is that, as I understand it, that's on 4.6. Is that because we didn't have room? We were out of beds or rooms?
No, ma'am. Usually, these transports that the sheriff's office is doing for us, which we thank just because our staff is still up and down, our staffing, excuse me, is to treatment, or is, a kid may get sentenced to the Division of Youth Services. And so, we will contact the sheriff's office, the transport department, and then we will arrange for that kid to be transported to Little Rock or to an acute treatment somewhere outside of Washington County.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's all I have. And again, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Anytime.
Additional questions for Director Tinsley? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Next up on our monthly reports is the Sheriff's Office report. Sheriff Cantrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jay Cantrell, Washington County Sheriff. Our report this month covers the period of August 16th through September 15th. Our calls for service, which is from our enforcement section, is up a little bit, about 100 calls for service, not unusual. 25 or 28,000 more people in the county coming back to school. So, you know, we're not surprised that number's up a little bit. Detention intakes for the month were up a little from the previous year, the same period. Got to send a few down to the Department of Corrections, and so we're grateful for their effort in trying to get some beds opened up. We had a visit with Director Proferi, probably butchered his name just then, but the Secretary of Corrections for Governor Huckabee, and he's promised us action, and he's going to do what he can to get some beds open and help with our county jail backlog. As you can see, our daily ADC, which is state prisoners, our average daily population was 176 for this period, 107 for this period last year. So a few more state prisoners. Our pretrial numbers are down, but we make up for it with our state prisoners. So be happy to answer any questions anyone might have about our enforcement report or our jail numbers.
Justice Real Stafford?
Thank you, Judge. That's great to hear that the state is going to, you know, help out with. I was curious if are those folks who have been convicted and they're waiting to go to state prison, or are they folks who they're already in state prison, they're kind of coming with us to do, like, you know, sort of, you know, the work program or different things like that, or is it some combination of the two?
The prisoners the state prisoners' average daily population are a combination of prisoners who have a new commitment to the Department of Correction, or they have a parole violation and waiting to go finish out their parole sentence. Now, there is a Act 570, whatever year it was that they passed that, allowed them to sanction someone up to 90 days, and they stay in the county jail. And when they passed this measure, their hope was to build some regional facilities around the state to take these 90-day people, but that never got completed. So they're kind of just fall to the county's responsibility up to 90 days. However, if they have no other charges and have only the 90-day hold, then they will sometimes cut that time in half, but that's something that happens out of parole and probation. So. Okay. But we have about 110 new commitments waiting to go down that have been sentenced in the circuit court to go to prison, and the rest of them are the parole violators.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
Yes.
Justice Coger?
Thank you, Judge. Sheriff Cantrell, the last time when we were going over your budget, you know, I asked you about the co-pays, if we could consider.
You did, yes.
And the last I heard from you that you were considering that, and, you know, I sent you a lot of information on what the state does. And
right.
So I was wondering if we could have that discussion and see, because I know that the $20 copay is a huge burden for a lot of people.
Right. Well, I'll just tell you what, we reached out to some of the area county jails, both the local and some of the ones that are comparable to us. So we reached out to Benton County, and Benton County is almost directly in line with us in what they charge. We reached out to Craighead County over in Jonesboro, which is they've got a 400 and something bed jail, so one of the bigger ones in the Washington County, and so they charge $30 for a copay. Garland County's the cheapest in the state that we found. They were $10 for a doctor visit or dentist visit. Miller County's $10. Sebastian County is $30. Sebastian County has a wide range of fees where they charge for x-rays, lab draws, pregnancy checks, wound care, mental health, and transfers to other medical facilities. So we don't charge any of that. So I think we're about right in line. We talked with our risk management attorney 2 weeks ago, and they recommended that counties really consider this copay for a couple reasons. One is healthcare is one of the biggest expenses for the county jails, and anything that the counties and the county jails can do to supplement that to help offset that high cost of healthcare, they recommended we do. So I think based on what they recommend and what other counties are doing, that we're probably right in line and probably just stay kind of where we're at.
Well, I guess to that I would say just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean that, it's a good thing to do. And I just don't think we should be charging people when we have them incarcerated for them to access medical care. And I realize that we said that no one is denied medical care, but
Correct.
I just know that it's a burden. So I was just hoping that we could maybe at least reduce it to what the Arkansas Department of Corrections charges, which is $5.
Okay.
But you're not open to that.
Well, I think that, I owe it to the taxpayers of this county to try to be frugal with their money, and if I have a way to recoup some of that, then I think that I feel obligated to do that. I also feel that it's a management tool to keep the people that need medical care, keep them some availability. Otherwise, we would see 200 people a day if we didn't have some way to manage that. And I know it's hard to believe, but some of the people are manipulative that are in our custody and will try to seek drugs or medication or treatment for ailments that they may not necessarily have. So it's a management tool in addition to a little bit of offset in the county budget.
Okay. Well, I'm disappointed in that, but thank you for checking with those others and letting me know that. I do appreciate it. And, about at the beginning of the year, I asked about if you could give us a report on how many people were in jail on lower bonds, like $500,000. And you did that a couple of times. I just wonder if we could go back to that and get a little more detailed report.
I think all that information is contained within our website, and I think you can sort that on the website by bond amount, and are able to sort those like an Excel spreadsheet and determine. So I think that information's out there and pretty easily available.
I just don't know how many people look at that. I just think it needs to be public knowledge. We're looking at a huge jail expansion, but okay. I think that's all that I have on that, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Justice Dennis?
Thank you, Judge. Sheriff, good to see you. Thanks for all that y'all do.
Yes, sir.
I had a question. I spoke with someone who I have respect for, but I wanted to ask you specifically. We have a lot of churches and nonprofits that come here and talk about they don't like to see people in jail and that they really wish that they could bond out. And I noticed from this sheet that was handed out, $41,000 or $1,000 or less, so that wouldn't be a real burden for someone to pay the bond for them. I'm just wanting to know, can a church or a nonprofit pay that $1,000 bond and get that person out?
Certainly, yes. If they want to pay a cash bond, then we take a cash bond from anyone that wants to put it up on that detainee's behalf. And then a lot of people, third-party people, help with the bondsman. They'll contact the bondsman and use a service of a bonding company, and the third party will pay that bonding fee to help get that person out. Whether it's a grandmother or a friend, or maybe in some cases it's an employer who needs that person to come on into work, and they'll come up and post that bail.
They have to use a bondsman?
No, they can post a cash bond.
Okay.
If they want to just come up with the cash,
So
they have to post the full amount.
Excuse my ignorance on this, but if it's $1,000 for bond, how much do they have to pay in cash?
$1,000. Yes. Okay. Now they get that back. That's just held in an
so
escrow account. It's not our money. It's just held to ensure that they appear in court. And once they appear in court, then whoever put that money up gets that money back.
Well, it's hard for me to believe that a lot of churches and nonprofits don't step forward and get these people out of jail.
We had the bail project that was here for a time, and that's what they did. They were a third-party cash bail provider, and they would provide cash money bail for certain people that were in jail. I don't know what their criteria was. Mm-hmm. And then when that person went to court, then they would get their money back. But they've still got a lot of outstanding bail money in our account. We're just waiting for those people to get to trial and get that court order to return their money to them.
So I'm curious, how many people skip bond?
I don't know the percentage.
Is it a lot? Or
No,
just a few?
not on. See, it's different. Well, bond. the bail bond industry, they've got skin in the game, because if someone doesn't appear in court, then the bail bonding company has to pay that bond to the court. So they're pretty good. They probably got a 95% appearance rate. People that put up a cash bond have a pretty good appearance rate, because they know that money's there and they're going to get it back whenever they appear for court. It's the people that are released without any bond, the ORs, the people that are released on their own recognizance, that we seem to have the biggest failure to appear rate.
Yeah. Well, I'm seeing 41 on $1,000 or less. You said something that triggered that. I'm sorry. So of those less, that's what it was. On those lesser charges, I assume the charge is lesser since they have $1,000 bond.
Yeah, that information is not very clear on this report, but, this is not my report.
Yes.
So
Well,
I
I'm just
don't know
using
really
that-
what the charges were.
I
or
was
if there
just
was-
using that one for an
Yeah,
example.
if there was some other hold there, or for some other reason.
So my point is, those 41 are more likely to show back up, aren't they, because it's a lesser charge?
Well, not necessarily.
Not necessarily?
No.
Well, did they just forget?
That's the consensus from a lot of people, that they forget, or they get busy, they didn't get a reminder, or, I've got a lot of people with failure to appear charges, and, they've got multiple failure to appears, so I think that they know if they go to court, that there's a good chance they might go to jail, and so.
Well, and forgive me for going down this path, but I'll use myself for an example. I got a letter to appear for jury trial, or the sheriff was going to come and get me. And to be honest with you, it came in the most plain envelope that it was in the junk pile stack, because my wife, that's junk mail, and I just happened to go through that stack and find it. Otherwise, y'all would have came and arrested me.
Probably not.
All right.
I can't remember the last time we arrested somebody for not showing up for jury
But
duty.
anyway, so, and I guess my other point is, I hear people that get a traffic ticket for more than $1,000 at times. I mean, bad driving, but at the same time, $1,000 doesn't seem like that much for someone to come up with, or for a church or a nonprofit to pay for them, especially since they're going to get it back.
That's correct, yes.
So, well, I want to put that out there. Maybe we could have some good Samaritans help get some of these people that don't deserve to be in prison back out. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Justice Coger?
Thank you, Judge. Sheriff, if you could help me remember, do they really get all the money back, or isn't there a 10% fee? There used to be a 10% fee that was charged.
For a cash bond, they have to put up, whatever the cash bond is, they have to put up a booking fee and a bonding fee, which is 20 and 20. Then if there's a warrant fee. So if it's $1,000 bond, they'll have to put up $1,080, and they'll get $1,000 of that back. $80 are fees that the state allows us to collect on certain people that are arrested, and then that goes back to the county coffer. I think in our budget, it's I can't remember the act, but there are a couple of administration of justice fees that the county is allowed to charge up to $20, and so the Washington County charges the maximum amount. So those are fees that we have to collect. The bail bondsman also collects those and remits them to the county. But they get the bond amount they get back if they post cash, provided they appear in court. If they don't
Right.
appear in court, then they forfeit that bond.
Okay, I just remembered in the old days, there was something about a 10% fee, and I
That's
didn't
the,
know.
a bail bondsman charges a 10% fee to put that money up, to put that money out, to guarantee this person will appear in court. And they charge a 10% fee for use of their money
Okay.
while you're out for trial, waiting on trial. But
Okay.
you don't get that 10% back. That's the bondsman's fee for getting you out of jail and then promising to pay the full bond amount if you don't appear. They charge a 10% fee for that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Sheriff Cantrell? Justice Lemming?
Jay, I just want to say thank you, and I want to say thank you for thinking of the citizens and trying to get a little of their money back, because you're doing a good job. I mean, we need all the help we can get down there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sheriff Cantrell.
Thank you.
Yes? You want to cue it? Got to push the button first.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate that. I wonder, Judge, I appreciate these reports, but could we have, who would we talk to, or could you arrange it that we could get reports from the Crisis Stabilization Unit each month, like we're getting here? Because I think that's very important. We don't want to come up and be surprised at the end, you know, that we're not keeping our numbers up like we have been a couple of times before. And I think as members of the quorum court, we have a duty, we have a responsibility to keep abreast of stuff like that. So if you could arrange, they have to prepare those reports anyway for the state, so it wouldn't be like new things that they were
Do you
doing.
know who Krista McAllister is?
Yes,
You could reach out to her.
but I should reach out to her, not you.
For sure. Okay, with that, we're going to move into the new business section of our meeting. First up is item number 6. A resolution supporting the Arkansas Freedom of Information Act. Justice Rios Stafford, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you, Judge. You know, I originally wrote this resolution back when it looked like the Arkansas legislature was going into special session, and of course, we haven't had a county services meeting in quite some time. You know, as we all know, there's been a lot of talk about freedom of information around the state in Little Rock the last couple months, and it's still ongoing, and, you know, our constituents, my constituents, you know, have reached out to me on where I stand and where we stand. So this resolution simply says that we support the current Arkansas FOIA laws and that we support, you know, voluntary and regular training by county staff and elected officials. This resolution is non-binding. It doesn't obligate the county in any way, shape, or form to do any specific action, but it's simply a message to the public on where we are as a county. And you know, I wanted to address a couple things with this. I know that last week I made some passionate statements about freedom of information, and I wanted to say here that if anyone was offended by what I said last week, I apologize. It was not my intent to offend any of my colleagues on the quorum court, only to defend the freedom of information. I worked as a journalist for 20 years, and freedom of information, as you can tell, gets me fired up. And some of our constituents have been asking me to speak up about this issue. I also wanted to clarify, this resolution, it was, like I said, it was written a while back. It does not take any position on the 2 FOIA lawsuits that the county lost this year or the questions on whether to appeal them. This doesn't take any position on the proposed constitutional amendment to put FOIA in the state constitution. My understanding is the Arkansas Citizens for Transparency and other groups are still working on the language of that, and so this resolution does not address that. It takes no position on that. And finally, I learned today that by coincidence, the Greene County Republican Committee, that's in the Paragould area, are going to be considering a very similar resolution to this tomorrow. I did not coordinate with them. It's a total coincidence, but it's clear this issue is on the minds of a lot of people across the state. Judge Deakins, I wanted to thank you last week for rightly pointing out that a lot of eyes are on our county, for better or worse, and we often set precedent. So I hope to see even more counties across Arkansas recommit to freedom of information. And so with that, I move to pass this resolution to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion to pass item 6.1 to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by Justice Rios Stafford. I think I heard second by Justice Hires. Second by Justice Hires. Are there any further discussion or comments on the item? Justice Koger?
Thank you, Judge. I just want to thank JP Rios Stafford for bringing this forward. I think it's a great idea, and I think it would be setting a great example for Washington County to show that we take the Arkansas Freedom of Information Act seriously, and that we're going to put it on the front burner and be aware of how we respond to it. Thank you.
Justice Lynn?
Thank you, Judge. Does our employees already do training and everything? Do we do any of that, or is that state required, or?
We do training.
Okay.
Of
So it's
course,
already,
if you
it's
guys,
already happening, so.
yeah, absolutely. And I think we even try to, I think if you remember when new members of the court roll on, our county attorney tries to do a little bit of a, what would you call it, a orientation with regard to that. So yeah, we're doing that.
Well, I learned a little of it when I went to the deal down at Little Rock, when I become JP. I mean, that's where I learned a little bit about it and Robert's rules and all that. So, I mean, if this ain't gonna change anything, I mean, what's wrong with what we got going? I mean, it's all state law and state, it's not, but anyway, I'm ready. I'll go for it.
Yeah, I mean, if I, as a representative of the county, can speak for the county, we take it very seriously. We talk about FOIA all the time. Just how we're handling it, how can we do it better, how are we tracking it, that kind of stuff. If there's any doubt in anyone's mind, it's a major issue for us. Any other comments or questions on the item? Any public comments on item 6.1?
I need to, okay.
There you go.
Sarah Moore, Fayetteville, Arkansas. I hope tonight, I mean, I think that this is not a divisive or, you know, I don't think it's partisan in regard to what the topic is. I think that statewide and across the county, I think that residents and elected officials all want open, transparent government. I was in Little Rock for the special session. I find FOIA to be an incredibly important law that we have in Arkansas. It's probably one of the more prestigious things that we have coming from the state of Arkansas that's unlike other states, how much we have a strong sunshine law. And unfortunately, I think that it was weakened at this last session. I think that affirming this resolution tells the residents of Washington County how much you value open, transparent government. Because I think, unfortunately, the recent conversations in the state have made residents wonder whether or not elected officials and local government are really taking our FOIA laws seriously. And so sometimes things are just for reinforcement to the general public, and to just remind ourselves. And so I hope, again, as we all probably are in agreement, that FOIA is incredibly important and open government is important, that you will adopt this tonight, that you will be supportive and hopefully be a unanimous body, because I think it sends a strong message that one of the biggest counties in the state of Arkansas values FOIA, so that in the future sessions, whether it be a special session or regular session, that hopefully we won't continue to see these attacks on FOIA. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments.
Good evening, Mac Mayfield, 980 Rocky Lane, Fayetteville. I just wanted to say, Judge, that this assembly and the sheriff, you have all the power. You have the power to compel, you have the guns, you can tax, levy fees and fines. As a citizen, the only power I have is voice and vote. We don't get much out of that voice and vote if we don't have open meetings and freedom of information. I hope you'll pass this. Thank you.
Public comments.
My name is Jonathan Nunez. I'm at 1753 East Side Road, District 9. I fully encourage you guys to adopt this resolution. I think it's incredibly important to send a clear message that our county does respect FOIA laws and that we are on board with clear and transparent government. I think statewide and locally, there has been a lot of concern from the citizenry, myself included. And I don't think anybody is here doing anything maliciously, but I think when 2 circuit court judges rule against you and the fact that our county has violated Freedom of Information Act laws, it reflects badly on us. Not just you sitting up there, but on the county as a whole. And Judge Deakins has very accurately said that we are leaders in this state. And I hold myself and the rest of my county to a high standard. I hope that you do as well. With that being said, I'm really grateful for JP Rio Stafford for introducing this resolution. I hope that you guys adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments. With that, we're going to take up the question. I have a motion to pass item 6.1 to the full quorum court with the due pass recommendation by Justice Rio Stafford, a second by Justice Hires. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? No. The ayes have it. That'll move to the full quorum court. Ms. Mason, will you please call a roll?
David Wilson. No. Kyle Lyons. Charles Dean. Yes, Chandra Washington. Yes. Beth Koger. Yes. Robert Dennis. No. Suki Hires. Yes. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Yes. Willie Lemming. Yes. Gary Ricker.
Yes, ma'am.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Ms. Mason, what was that vote count? I'm sorry, I wasn't.
8 for and 3 against.
That'll move to the full quorum court. Item number 7, an ordinance anticipating and appropriating additional grant funds in the drug court grant fund budget for 2023. If you will all, Justice Ricker, you want to introduce this?
I just want to make a motion to send that to the quorum court with a due pass recommendation.
Second. Sir, I have a motion to pass by Justice Ricker to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. And I believe I heard second by Justice Lyons. Is that correct, sir? I have a motion to pass and a second by Justice Lyons. Any further discussion on the item? Any questions on the item? Any public comments on item 7.1? Seeing none, we'll take up the question. I have a motion to pass item 7.1 to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by Justice Ricker, second by Justice Lyons. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Item 7.1 will move to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. Item number 8.1, an ordinance prohibiting the use of compression release engine brakes, also known as Jake brakes, in Washington County and for other purposes. Justice Dean, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you, Judge. I live in District 7. We got a lot of pits there and a lot of trucks. This brake that they use is really unnecessary, and it's just obnoxious to people that live in the area. They're very loud. There's not a hill big enough, even in the area, for them to use a Jake brake in. That's usually where that they're used. And it's just really disturbing a lot of people. We're getting a lot of complaints, and I'd just like to see something done about it. You know, looking out for the people of the county and get the noise taken down and see if we can't get the trucks under control a little bit and let them know that we are paying attention and stuff. So I'd just like to move this on to the full quorum court.
I have a motion to pass to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by Justice Dean, second by Justice Lyons. Further discussion? Justice Lemming?
Thank you, Judge. There's no way that Washington County needs to do that. A Jake brake on a truck is put there for a reason. It's kind of like a Jake brake is compared to like a three-legged horse. A semi without a Jake brake usage is not worth it. Washington County owns several trucks that they couldn't use it. Our fire department's all got Jakes on them now. If you got one little area that you're having problems with, might be a different story, but if you're gonna put it all over Washington County, there's no way that needs to happen. We got hills that they pull them chicken trucks off of that, I mean, they're not long, but they're steep. Next thing you know, they'll be rolling out in the intersection in front of cars because brakes gets hot. We don't need to do this. Ain't no way we need to do this. If you want to go in a direction to contain noise, why don't we go with a noise ordinance? and go at it a different angle, because there's a lot of these little sports cars that's run around here that sounds like a pissed off bumblebee running up and down the road, and these Harley Davidsons, these motorcycles got loud pipes. I mean, there's noise in different directions than just picking on trucks. That everything you buy around here comes in on trucks and trailers. And all these new trucks nowadays has got these big old mufflers. It's got the DEF and all that in them. You can't even hardly hear them run. Yeah, there are a few trucks that's got straight pipes, and yeah, they do need their bells ringed. I agree with that. But there's too many that's Tyson and Walmart and J.B. Hunt, and all of them is buying new trucks, and we don't need to pick on them. Washington County, you know, you say Washington County, you can't use your Jake brakes. Well, there goes the price of brake shoes down at the road department. It's going to go up twice as much, because Jake brakes are very important. And we need to be careful using the word Jake brake, because that is a company that owns Jake brake, and they'll sue you, because they've sued a lot of cities and states over the usage of their name. So we need to be staying real heavily with the compression brakes. So thank you.
Justice Dennis?
So I don't have a long history with Jake brakes, so I went and asked the professionals that I could find. If I don't know, I go to someone that I know that does know, and I'll be voting against it, even though biggest part of my district is all in cities, and cities pretty much say no Jake brakes. But the reason I'm against it is because of the safety reason. I was told that compression brakes have been around for ever since we've had automotives. And so they proved to be safe, or safer than just brakes. And so if you've got a school bus at the bottom of a hill, and I heard that one said here by the folks that had the pits out there, or against the pits, that a school bus could be coming down the hill, and one of the gravel trucks could be behind them and run over them. Well, with a Jake brake, you're less likely to run over that school bus. So, yeah, so safety-wise, and if you think about it, all the cities have it. Well, the cities are much slower driving vehicles, because a lot of our rural roads are slower speed limit. And so, but a lot of our county roads are steeper and rougher and harder to drive on and more narrow. And so there's a lot of reasons for trucks to slow down, but at the same time, I'll use myself for an example. I won't tell all the details because it's rather embarrassing, but I saw a case where a semi locked his brakes up to not run into something. And I mean, it shut that truck down in a hurry. I mean, you could hear it, and it shut it down. And he missed it. The car behind him was going to run into him because they were following too close, but they went around him on the left side and ran right had a wreck running into it by passing on the left rather than hitting him in the back. So, and I used to drive for a living, not trucks, but I was out there on a four-wheeler going all over America. And I've seen lots and lots of wrecks occur. I've seen semis turn over in front of me and behind me. And a Jake brake is a good thing to have on a truck. And in an emergency, you need to use it. And so I think you're taking away from their ability to use it when they need it. So the way I understand it's a switch. They switch it on, switch it off. But when they take their foot off the gas pedal, that's when it makes that noise. And then when they hit the brake, then the Jake brake's working. So I'll vote no for the safety reason. Thank you.
Justice Dean?
I understand that a Jake brake is used as an emergency brake. These guys are not using these as emergency brakes, and at 6 o'clock in the morning, do you want one of them outside your house rapping? and busting down through there and waking you, your wife, your kids, everybody in your house up? I mean, that's what I'm getting. These guys coming down through them valleys. I'm not saying it has to be all of Washington County, but there are areas in Washington County that it needs to be posted. And I believe if we get complaints in areas, them are the areas we post. If there aren't no complaints in any areas, then I don't see a reason to post it. But right now, I do see a reason for it. And I do get complaints for it. And I'd like to look out for the people in my area and get it stopped, because it's unnecessary. If it is necessary is one thing, but I'm telling you right now, where they're using it, it's so unnecessary, it's pathetic. I've seen them using them going up a slight grade. Who uses that going up a slight grade? Just somebody wanting to make noise or thinking that rappel on it is cool or something, and that don't work. You know, it just don't work.
Justice Fleming?
And it's just not semis. It's got, my 1-ton truck out here has got a Jake on it. All the new Chevrolet diesel engines has got exhaust brakes on them. And this, on this deal, it says, line 17 says, in the interest of public health and safety. Well, this is not public health and safety. You're going backwards because it's, you run over somebody because you brakes get hot and fade going down a hill. And you was making a comment about jaking up a hill. Well, if you've ever drove a truck before, sometimes you can put that jake on and you can get another gear faster because the motor will come down and you can get in there and go. I understand what your complaint is, and I know where you're having a complaint, but that's, if we want to do it spotly, I agree with you, but we can't do it all over this, because I've got 100 chicken houses south of Morrow and Evansville, up on Skylight Mountain and up on Tyree Mountain and Blue Mountain. They're steep, and there's no way we shouldn't even be thinking about it down in that area. No way. Thank you.
Justice Pond?
Yes, we don't have our county attorney sitting there with you, and I would ask my county attorney to correct me if I'm mistaken, but you pass this ordinance. This ordinance would be in effect and cover every single part of the unincorporated Washington County. And also, I'm unsure that you can make zones where it's good and zones where it's enforced and zones where it's not. We've not been able to do that on any other kind of anything. It's either law countywide or it's not. I might ask for the county attorney to research that. And other thing, I've got relatives and friends who are truck drivers. I'm not a truck driver, but I do realize, well, there's no way I'm going to try to tell them how to drive their trucks. And another part of it is I do benefit from those trucks. As a matter of fact, I don't believe there's a single item that I consume or use where I live here in Washington County that didn't come in here on a truck. If it came in on a train, it had to be offloaded onto a truck and then hauled to me. I understand the situation here, and many times I've heard people complain about trucks, whether it's a jake brake or they just make too noise and we don't need that kind of business in our neighborhood, all that sort of thing. And probably And I have suggested to people before, a good, if you really wanna put the hurt on these truckers, you just quit buying anything that was brought in here on a truck. Anyway, thank you.
Justice Rios Stafford?
Thank you, Judge. I'm going to start out by saying I am in no way, shape, or form an expert on trucks. And so I'm going to rely on the folks around this horseshoe who are. But, just a couple things that occurred to me on this, and I don't know the answer to this. Is there a state law or any kind of law in Arkansas that requires a muffler system on Jake brakes to prevent the noise? There is, okay, all right. So they have to have that already to begin with, it sounds like.
You can pull up Arkansas state law and exhaust it.
Okay. And then the second thing, what JP Pond was mentioning about my next, the question is, can we designate or empower the road department or empower the county to just designate certain sections of road or certain areas where it's a quiet zone, where you can't operate these. I will point out to my colleagues that the way this ordinance is written, it does have an exception. It says, except unless used in emergency situations. So if the brake is being used in an emergency situation for safety reasons, then there's an exception for that already in the way this is written.
Justice Ricker?
I was just gonna throw in a little tidbit. When the city of Greenland did a compression brake ordinance, we started out with Jake Brake and received a cease and desist letter from the company that owns the term Jake Brake. If that term's anywhere in the ordinance, they will sue you. It has to be worded compression brake. You cannot use Jake Brake in it.
Justice Lyons?
Thank you, Judge. Just listening to all the comments, a lot of good comments. I think a blanket across Washington County is probably not what we should be doing. Probably is some areas that this should be. I'd make a proposal, whatever the appropriate way is to do that, to take it back and maybe refine it to be more specific versus countywide, and then move on from there.
Well, just commenting to that, I think the appropriate motion would be to table this for 30 days to the next County Services Committee. I mean, I've made notation of Justice Pond's legal questions that I think we would want to do some research about that as a county. I don't have those answers offhand. So is that the motion you'd like to make at this point? Justice Lyons makes a motion to postpone until the next County Services Committee. Second by Justice Washington. Is there any debate about postponing the ordinance? You comment on that? No, but I would like it amended. Okay. I mean, I think if we postpone it, we'll.
That's what we would do.
We can postpone it for 30 days? Well, I'd like to, I think we've taken some good comments down about the ordinance. I think if we take it back, we'll rewrite it to take in a lot of these different concerns. I don't want to speak for you. You're the sponsor of the ordinance. I definitely want to.
No, I change it. I just want. That's.
Yeah.
I think if it's not posted, if it isn't posted, then it's not a law. But if it's posted, it becomes a law. So, as I say, people with complaints are the ones that are gonna have it posted. Those are the areas that get it. You don't have to have it in your area. You don't have to have it in yours,
Yeah.
It's where the problem's at. And that is where my concern is.
Sure. And I think when we take it back and redraft it, we can address some of that.
Okay.
That's okay. Justice
Thank you.
Lemmy?
I just want to ask you, as you're talking to your attorney, ask him if it would be easier to do a noise ordinance. I mean, because that'll get more things rather than just trucks. That'll get That, you know, and it might be easier to go a noise ordinance route than trying to eliminate, just trying to spot do this
Sure.
across the county. Thank
We'll
you.
take up whatever. Okay, so I had a motion to postpone to the next County Services Committee by Justice Lyons, a second by Justice Dean. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Item 8.1 will move to the next County Services Committee meeting with the possible redrafts. Item number 9, an ordinance updating the flood damage prevention program for Washington County, Arkansas, and for other purposes. As you've heard some discussion in the past weeks here of going through our work, there's new FEMA floodplains that are out, floodplain maps. Basically what this does is adopt those new maps and clean up the language in our planning ordinance. Justice Ricker?
Motion to move this to full quorum court with a due pass recommendation.
I have a motion to pass to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by Justice Ricker. I heard second by Justice Lyons. Any further discussion on the item? Justice Koger?
Thank you, Judge. Who is the floodplain administrator?
By order of law, that's the county judge. We're rewriting the ordinance to where the floodplain administrator will be someone on my team.
But, like a new hire, just to do that?
Well, it'll probably be our planning director.
I'm sorry, could you?
No. It'll be a responsibility of our planning director.
Planning director.
I'm trying to cut people.
Okay, well, I was just curious because it says the floodplain administrator must enforce the provisions of this ordinance.
Yeah.
So I just,
I'll probably delegate that duty to our planning director.
okay, and there's, on line 154, it says there's a subject to fines of not more than $500 per day for each violation. So in the event, well, I don't know, I assume, you know, at some point someone's gonna be fined for it. Where does that money go?
That goes back to the general fund.
Okay.
Essentially, by operation of statute, any money the county receives goes to the general fund and has to be appropriated back out to the ordinance. That's why we go through this, like with the sheriff's department, when they work football games or something, they can't collect that money directly. It has to go to the general fund, and then we give it back to them.
Okay, well, I guess I was just curious, I wasn't sure who, you know, where the money would go, or who would even do that. And also on line 164, and I'm assuming this ordinance probably came to us on a template from the Arkansas Association of Counties, but on line 154, I think there's a that's severe flooding, it should be severe flooding, but I know that's very minor, but I'm gonna point it out because it might be in all across the state if every county's using this form. That's all I have, thank you.
We'll take that up as a Scrivener's error and have that corrected by the full quorum court meeting. Any further discussion about this? Public comments on item number 9.1? Seeing none, we're going to take up the question. I have a motion to pass item 9.1 to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by Justice Ricker, a second by Justice Lyons. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Item 9.1 will move to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. Justice Koger?
Yes, thank you, Judge. I can help but notice that District 1 JP, his name tag is not there, and he wasn't on the voting last week. I mean, do we still have a JP for District 1?
We have a JP for District 1.
I'm sorry,
We do have a JP for District 1.
still Coleman Taylor?
Yep.
Thank you.
Would anybody like to entertain a consent agenda? Justice Ricker?
I'll make a motion to place items 7 and 9 on the consent agenda.
I have a motion by Justice Ricker to place items number 7 and items number 9 on the consent agenda. I have a second by Justice Washington. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Items number 9 and number 7 will move to the consent agenda. With that, we have the last item on our agenda is a public comment period. We have a 12-minute public comment period with a limit of 3 minutes per person. Public comments.
Mac Mayfield, 980 Rocky Lane in Fayetteville, and I just wanted to address the discussion about the $1,000 bail. I worked with the bail project extensively when they were here, and what we learned is that in our rural county with very little transportation, it's not just getting the money. It's getting people to their probation appointments, back to court. The wraparound services that are required are extensive. So some of those efforts are going on, and they're pretty impressive in some regards. But it is a heavy lift when somebody gets tangled up with the jail. Just wanted to pass that on. Thank you.
Great. Public comments.
Hi, Sarah Moore. I'm the Executive Director of the Arkansas Justice Reform Coalition. We were formed in January of 2019 for those that are newer to the court. But today I put something in front of you. There's been a lot of questions about data and metrics, and I agree data and metrics are important. When I put this in front of you, I know that there were conversations that were started tonight that if this report hadn't been in front of you, you wouldn't have had those dialogues. Data and looking into the population of the jail creates additional dialogue and conversation for us to problem solve together about the overcrowding that exists. Regardless of whether you're in the camp of build the jail or not build the jail expansion, the truth of the matter is we have to manage our jail population. We live in an area that's rich with technology, rich with data scientists, and we have the ability to slice and dice the information in many different ways. And so, these aren't just data points, these are human lives. That's the other thing I want to talk about. I have people very close to me whose lives have been decimated, unfortunately, because of their arrests that happened around mental health situations that they found themselves in, that they continued to deteriorate even long after their jail stint ended. And so the trauma that happens and the additional supports and resources that are needed in our community when people spend more than 24 hours in the jail is compounded. And that all at the end of the day comes back to taxpayers. So I wanted to kind of go through and read through some of this, but I wanted you to know, when he talks about the numbers of how many are in the jail, there's restricted bookings and there's bookings that show to everyone. When I look at what's forward to the public, I can see 766 through the time period that the Sheriff's Office showed today through September 15th. 144 of those were from Fayetteville Police Department, 19%. 127 were from Springdale, 17%. 241 were from Washington County, 31%. Washington County tends to police the unincorporated areas of the county. That might conjure up some questions of, why is Washington County showing so many arrests whenever they aren't doing necessarily arresting or policing right in our incorporated areas like Springdale and Fayetteville. That might be that, are we going out and actively seeking warrants for failure to appears, or is something else happening? It's something worth digging into. Additionally, despite the fact that in our PIT count for our unhoused population, we had 436 people that were listed in our population of 240,000 in Washington County. 108 people list either Seven Hills or homeless as their address, which is 14% of our population. So we're putting kind of the most expensive type of housing around these individuals instead of looking for additional resources where those folks could be housed.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. That's your 3 minutes. I appreciate it. I have a motion to suspend the rules and extend public comment for another 3 minutes by Justice Coger. Second. I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Justice Hires. All those in favor? Those opposed? That fails. Public comments expired. Public comments, additional public comments.
Roll call vote.
Ms. Mason, will you please call a roll?
David Wilson.
A yes vote will extend the time for Ms. Moore for 3 minutes.
Kyle Lyons. Charles Dean. Chandra Washington. Yes. Beth Koger. Yes. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Yes. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Yes. Willie Lemming. No. Gary Ricker. No. Butch Pond. No.
Motion fails. Thank you, Ms. Moore.
All right, thank
Additional
you.
public comments?
I'm available if you'd like to sit down later. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Greg Tabor, Washington County. Talk about a couple of things. As most of you know, I was the chief at Fayetteville for 13 years, worked there 35 years total. I can't speak to Ms. Moore's numbers, but I can promise you that enforcement in the unincorporated areas of Washington County does not even come close to comparing enforcement in the city of Fayetteville. So I just wanted to make that clear. I have quite a bit of experience in both areas. There's a reason those numbers are higher from Washington County. Obviously, all felony warrants are assigned to the county. So if Fayetteville has a felony of any kind, Washington County is responsible for that warrant, and it shows Washington County being the arresting agency. Springdale has a shooting. The suspect runs off to California. They get arrested in California. Washington County is responsible for going out there and getting them. So that shows a Washington County arrest. So that's one reason that those numbers look a little lopsided, and it would appear to the untrained eye that there's more enforcement, but it's really just the way the system works. To address some of the information that you were given there on your sheet, we took a quick glance, and I don't know when those numbers were compiled. We took a quick glance at the current jail population right this second live. There is actually only 6 people in jail with a $1,000 bond. There is not a single person in jail, according to the jail records, if they're all 100% correct, with less than a $1,000 bond. There's a lot of people that show 0, which I would assume is where some of these 41 are coming from. Those are people, for example, that are on a state commitment, committed to circuit court, hold for another department. So those people can't be released if their bond's 0 or $100,000. They can't be released for those reasons. But currently, right this second, 6 people in jail with a $1,000 bond, and no one in jail with a bond less than $1,000. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Additional public comments? Seeing none, with that, we'll be adjourned.